The Great Workshop Fire of 1968. I'm working on redoing this story. A friend of mine, Grant Livingston, gave me some suggestions on it. He says, do it as two people. I said, yeah, I like that idea. So we'll see how it works. 1968, a couple high school boys. We found an edger motor. You know, edgers have the horizontal shafts, the blade spins around for edging sidewalks, in a trash pile. So we brought it home. We got out the books, we asked people questions. We figured out that turning it, it had no compression. They said, well, either your valves or your piston rings are gone. One of the two, and they're easy to replace. So he said, okay. Planning ahead, we covered Dad's workshop. It was 4 doors in a row on sawhorses out in the workshop. We covered it with a thick layer of newspaper, so at cleanup time we could just roll it all up and throw it in the garbage. We took the engine at this end of the workshop and we started taking it apart. Every time we took a piece off it, we'd move down a little bit so we'd have them all laid out in order so we could reassemble it easily. And we had this all laid out, looking really nice. And we said, well, let's take a break on this right now and let's get back to building the motorcycle frame, because that was our goal. We were building a motorcycle. We had an old bicycle, and we had some of that angle iron bracket, you know, the stuff that they set beds on that you're always cutting your shins with, that we'd gotten out of another trash pile. We lived for trash piles. And we'd cut twice and measured once. Yeah, that's right, cut twice and measured once, and had our pieces lined up. We were going to put an L bracket on the bicycle frame, that down tube from the front to the crank set down there. So I clamped it on with some vice grips to hold it while we welded it on. You're going, wait, high school kids know how to weld? Sort of. Dad, I don't know where, he ran a company that would buy wholesale stuff, and there was this arc welder with this big crank on top to change the amount of amperage from 50 to 100 and something or other. It was huge, and it had 2 big, heavy, probably 0 gauge wires coming out of the back of it that were stripped this much off of insulation and just laying there. We said, well, let's hook it up. Power box in the garage, we open it up, there's some breakers there, and we said, well, we'll just hook it to these breakers here. We'll hook it in. Go outside to the outside of the house where the original wiring comes in. In the old days, you know, there used to be this big lever on the outside of your house to turn off all the power in the house. So I go out and pull the lever, we go back, we wire that insulated wire in there and screw the screws down and put it on the 2 breakers, one on each side of the 110, so we've got 220 going to this welder. We're ready to check it out. I go out to the house, Tom's in the garage, I pull the lever, I'm pulling the lever! Nothing happened. That's good. We were expecting something to spark and blow up. Then I come back and I go over to the circuit box where the 2 circuit breakers are for that welder, and I sort of turn my head, put my fingers on them, and click them over. Nothing happened again. I'm even happier. Now I go over to the welder, and the welder has this big switch on it with little safety guards on both sides of it so it can't accidentally be turned on. That beautiful 60 cycle hum, it was ready to roll. We'd clamped the ground clamp onto the bicycle frame. We got that stick and the stick holder thing. We got the masks. Now on welding masks, you know, you got to practice that, putting it on and go and have it flip down in front of your face, because you got to look cool when you do that. There's a reason for that. You can't see where you're starting your weld with the mask down, because it's so dark you can only see when you have the weld going. So you've got to line it up just right and then flip it down and then start your weld joint. So we were getting this flipping down. We were ready to try. Now, we're high school boys. We're surfers. We're in our nylon swim trunks. That's it. Oh, yes. Oh, and had I told you, we washed some dirt off the bike frame and the engine when we brought it in, so the cement garage floor was still damp. Hold it. We got damp garage floor, bare feet, high voltage. Well, we had one shocking adventure, not very bad, but we went back and put some clothes on. Got that welder going. When you weld, little sparks go flying everywhere. I mean everywhere. And if you're wearing boots, because we thought we'd put boots on to keep our feet, you know, those sparks go down in your boots and they burn little holes right around here on you. So it's time for another break. We had to go back inside, put on our blue jeans, put them outside our boots, because if you put them inside, they just go right on in there. Long sleeve shirts, leather gloves. Now we look like welders. We're ready. The best weld joint on that whole thing was that first one we did that held the bar for the engine to sit on, and the vice grips. That was the best weld joint. We welded those vice grips right on there. They weren't coming off. And it looks like a cool lever. Let's just leave it. So we had our frame set up. We were ready to put the engine on, so it was back to the workshop and that row of parts all laid out. Get at this end, fill a bowl with gasoline, scrub brushes, scrub each part and work our way down. Cleaning it all up. Gasoline splashing all over the newspaper on the counter. Wait, what was this story called? The Great Workshop what? Got gasoline all over the newspaper, all over the counter. And we're starting to set it up. I'm down to the engine block and the flywheel. And I'm turning it, feeling it, and it feels pretty good. And it's all covered with gasoline dripping off. And I go, yeah, that's not bad. And then I gave it a spin. On a lawnmower engine, there's a thing called a magneto. The flywheel has two magnets in it. And when the magnets pass the magneto, which is a coil of wire, it causes electrons to flow through there, generating a high voltage that sparks the spark plug. If you've ever been shocked by a spark plug wire, you know it's a high voltage. Yeah, I spun it. I heard the pop. I saw the blue spark. I saw burst into flames in front of me. I threw it onto the workbench and tried to pat my hands out that were on fire. And the workbench did, for those of you who have experimented with burning gasoline before, the workshop does what gasoline does when it lights. Whoosh! Black smoke billowing up to the ceiling in the workshop, fire all over the place. Tom and I dive out the door and roll out onto the lawn out back. And we lived in a nice neighborhood. It was a nice, soft, spongy grass lawn, well edged around the plants. Beautiful sunny day, light breeze blowing. But that smoke was coming out the door. We started grabbing hands full of dirt from around the plants and running in and throwing it. I finally got a shovel. We're covering the workshop with dirt. We're putting it out. The flames were gone. There was just a couple pieces of newspaper with that little golden edge they get with a little swifts of smoke coming off it. We patted those out. Tom looked at his watch and says, your parents are going to be home real soon. So we panicked. We got all the lawnmower parts, threw them in some plastic buckets, rolled up all the newspaper, swept the dirt out, tried to get all the soot off the walls and the ceiling and everything. And Dad drove up. Hey, you boys need to get this stuff out of the garage. Oh, I see you hooked up the welder. Did it work? So he went into the house. We got it all cleaned up. We eventually went back and took all those parts and washed them in water, and then this time we used kerosene. Much lower flash point. It's not going to light with a spark. And cleaned everything, put it back together, actually got it working. We had a pedal that you pushed that would tighten a fan belt and engage it, and we could ride it around. Some kids saw it and said, hey, you want to sell that? And being mildly smart, we said, sure. So we got money. He got a ticket from the police riding it home on the highway, and we got away with it without actually burning the house down. One day Dad and I were out in the workshop, and he did say, a lot of black mold growing on the ceiling. Maybe we should put a window unit in here. But that, again, is as true as it gets. And I'm TellemTall.